Well, good afternoon, Lydia. How's it going?
Hi, Sarah. I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. Glad that we are here together today after it's been a couple weeks.
Yep. And there's a lot to talk about. So,
There's definitely a little bit to talk about. So we'll go right into it. Forbearance numbers, they've actually been continuing to improve. So we're seeing a lot of good things in that movement.
yes.
There's about 2.1 million borrowers who are still in a forbearance plan. So that's now down to 4.22% of mortgages in a plan. That's, improvement from last week's 4.36, percent. And so we're really looking at, we've seen like 11 weeks of continuous improvement, which is awesome.
That's great.
When we look at forbearance by stage and what's going on with that, there's 11.9% of borrowers are in their initial stage of forbearance. And the new requests in the last couple of weeks have dropped down to their lowest since March of 2020. So that's also a huge improvement.
Mm-hmm.
About 83% of borrowers are on extension, and that is an increase over the last, couple of weeks, and that's what we have been seeing. Over 50% of borrowers that are in a forbearance plan have been there for over 12 months. So we're going to start seeing a whole lot more people coming out of their plans.
Yep.
And about 5.1% of borrowers are re-entries. And again, this is another increase in recent months or recent weeks.
Right.
There are, kind of continuously looking at these things. Just because there are 2.1 million borrowers in a forbearance plan, that does not mean that they're all late on their loans. So
right.
of the forbearance exits from June 1st through May 9th, 46.5% of them exited current on their payments, which means they either got caught up, they never missed a payment, or they ended up paying off the loan with a refinance or a sale. And so this number has declined in recent weeks, but it's not, it's just kind of small dips that we've seen.
Right.
The number that we keep talking about has definitely increased, and that's the 15% of borrowers that exit their forbearance plan with no loss mitigation plan in place. These are people that are behind on their mortgages, and they need to know that there are options. The Mortgage Bankers Association is encouraging everybody to remind borrowers as they're nearing their end of their forbearance plan to call their lender, call their servicer, find out what those options are, because there are options.
Right. And they need to really have a exit strategy. They really do.
Absolutely need to have an exit strategy. And, of the number of people who are late, who are delinquent, even though they are in a forbearance plan, they are still counted in the delinquency rate. And so we are watching those delinquency rate. And, Lydia, remember in December, we were talking about how there were like 10 million Americans either late on their rent or on their mortgage.
Yes.
We talked about that number for a long time, saying, okay, 10 million, like, kind of, we're seeing improvements. So as of March, it dropped down to 5 million. So that's
great.
Humongous improvement. And the majority within that, over 2.5 million of that 5 million are people who are behind on their rents. So we do know that the number, even for people who are overall delinquent in their loans, is under 2.5 million. And this is nationwide. So even when you look at some of these numbers, this is not even going to be necessarily evenly spread across the country. There's going to be other reasons in different localities that are going to have different situations. Some of the things to note, just even because of everything that's going on, because of the massive appreciation and massive demand that we're seeing across the country. So even though we're seeing all these delinquencies, we're also seeing, that continued appreciation and the really big challenge with the supply and demand imbalance. So single family rentals have been a huge, just huge hot button. Lots of people are wanting a single family rental. So two of the country's largest single family REITs, which are Invitation Homes and American Homes for Rent, they both are increasing their rates by 10% on their vacant houses as they start turning over. These are huge increases.
Well, and that's even a supply and demand issue right now. It's huge.
Yes. And, and some of the reasons for some of the, the imbalance is we want to talk about just, building. So this is kind of interesting statistics, some explanation on where we got this housing shortage or how it came to be is from 1959 to 2006, builders were building on average of a little over 1.1 million houses a year. From 07 to 2020, the average was just over 700,000 a year. And even just in that time frame, that has created a 5.5 million home shortfall nationwide. So,
Right.
yes, 2020 we had an increase in home starts, but even still, it was under a million. So even if we look at, if we could have 2 million homes built a year, so more than doubling that previous average, it would still take 6 years to dig through to make up that shortfall. So again,
Yep.
we're talking the supply and demand, where really there's challenges with it. And I will be sure to post a little chart that kind of shows decade by decade and how many homes were built. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And then the last piece I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about is employment. And so kind of good news that came out of ASU's WP Carey School of Business is that they're predicting that Arizona will add, by the end of 2020, 117,000 new jobs, putting us ahead of our pre-pandemic numbers, which is pretty significant considering in April 2020 alone, we lost over 331,000 jobs. So, good news for us here in Arizona. And, as we're looking at employment, we have around 7.4 million job openings right now across the country, which is 5.5 million more than we had at our lowest point during the Great Recession. So, despite rough job numbers in April, we know that there's a lot of availability for those jobs, but because of the job numbers in April that were really way below what they thought that they were going to come in at, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is the largest lobbying group in the country, is actually urging Congress to end the $300 a week extra unemployment benefit, to say, hey, we need to promote people to get back into the labor force. Because and how that employment part impacts real estate is, you want to think about it. So employers having to offer higher wages to get people to come back to work. When the wages increase quickly, it drives up more inflation, which makes, which puts a further pressure on mortgage rates, and then that adds challenges in housing. Now, I definitely cut that out, kind of made it really, there's layers to it, but it's something that we really want to think about is we don't want to have any significant challenge with our employment. Sorry about my dog.
Right.
And you even look at like the appreciation rates, because we have our borrowers have pressure on just, affordability. Right now, locally, our median appreciation rate is pushing 30% year over year, 30%. That's insane. And it's due to our supply and demand imbalance, where our supply remains 76% below balance, while our demand is over 7% above balance. And so that extreme rate is going to just really challenge our borrowers. And even though inventory has started to increase, it's one of those things where it's almost imperceptible. It's so small. So, expect that to increase, and demand has declined a bit, but we're still in this positive appreciation because of this imbalance.
There's still multiple offers on almost every aspect of every level of pricing of houses.
So some of it is where, I read a statistic that said, in March, we had 10 buyers for every listing. Today, we have 5 buyers for every listing. So even though that demand decreased so significantly, it's not enough to really, it only takes one contract to sell that house.
Right. And to your point also, Sarah, when it comes to the job, if anybody works in the East Valley, that area of Eastmark right there, they've got the big Apple data building right there. That whole corridor is going to be data central. So City of Mesa just approved, IBM is having a huge building go up right there. And my husband works at a electrical wholesale house, and they see all the jobs coming in and who's applying for permits. And you and I were talking before the show that up on the east, or up on the north side of Phoenix, there's a ginormous, I think it's out of Taiwan, aren't they? It's a company out of Taiwan.
It's called the Taiwan Semiconductor Company. So yes.
Yep. And this thing is so big. They need two, and I'm not a builder, so I don't know, but this thing is so big that they literally are using two concrete mixers. I guess that's a big thing in the industry. So that's going to bring large amounts of people to come here. And weren't you saying that Arizona is going to be what? I mean, we're pretty, when it comes to semiconductors, we're one of the top ones, aren't we?
Yeah, if not the top one, especially once the Taiwan Semiconductor Company is here, between Intel and the Taiwan Semiconductor making, they're basically three giant semiconductor companies, that build them outside of China that really are building big ones. It's Intel, it's, the Taiwan Semiconductor Company, and then Samsung. And we are currently on the short list as Samsung is looking to explore another plant facility. And so if we have that development here, that will add that Greater Phoenix literally will be among the world's largest semiconductor producers.
Yep. And I actually think they are going to come here. That's my
That'd be
prediction.
pretty exciting. More jobs here for sure.
I'll keep you posted when I hear that.
Definitely.
So, yeah. But on the servicing side of things, I am still getting lots of inspections, orders for BPOs. Those are definitely accelerating, and there's more of them coming. This last week, I had a really interesting BPO. I had a retro BPO, and I had to ask you, I'm like, what the heck? So what they really wanted is they gave us from September of 2018, I'm sorry, September of 2017 to September of 2018 in a particular area. They were very specific on what they were looking for. And it was interesting. You and I talked about it because I had never seen one before. And I'm like, Sarah, I've never done this before. Yeah. So you looked at some old data from 10, 12 years ago. And when they used to do these retro BPOs, you had said it was when they suspected that there was some sort of fraud of some kind. It'll be interesting to know what it is. The area I was doing, it was coming from a new builder. So it was a new build home, but who knows? And then I've had a couple other people tell me within my little sphere of people that it may be that the banks want to know what the values were back then too. I mean, we don't know why they asked for it, but they did ask for it. And it very well could be, maybe they were looking for a national number, and they picked us in this little pocket here to find out if what they found here was more of a national type situation. I know you and I talked about that too.
Yeah, so, looking at some of the trends and what's happening and historic data is interesting to say the least.
It was, and I am going to keep you posted on if I get any more of those, because it actually, I'll be honest with you, it was easier to find comps from 2017 than it is for some of the new BPOs, because when you go into an area, there might not be any active or pending, or they're all closed. So, it's just BPOs are challenging right now because of the market.
Lack of data.
And that's, I mean, I'm finding it. The people that help me with my BPOs are finding it. The servicing company knows about it because they're the ones that are like, yep, you in Texas are having issues right now.
Right.
So, yeah. So when it comes to the moratorium, because obviously that's coming at the end of June for the foreclosures and forbearances, we've extended it. Now we're at what, about 18 months now, Sarah, from the beginning? About 18 months?
It'll be about 15 months in which the opportunity to get enrolled, but they could last for forbearance could last as long as 18 months based on timelines. So you can have, if you get enrolled, say June 29th, you would still have, upwards of over 12 months. So it's interesting when we can see the link. We'll have people coming out of forbearance way past the end of the moratorium or of the program.
Right.
At
Which
the
will
end
be
of the program. That's it.
right. Which will be interesting. So a couple of weeks ago, I did get a hold of one of my asset managers, and we kind of had this discussion on, do you think they're going to extend the moratorium? And his belief was that there's really no reason to extend it because, to be honest, our economy's doing well. Yes, we have inflation, but there's a job on every corner. Obviously, supply and demand that you just discussed. I mean, we're not the only state with new development right now. I mean, we are one of the top states with all the good people are moving here from other states and businesses are coming here. So Arizona is doing a good job of that, but there's other states that are doing that too. And so the economy's doing well. There's a job on every corner. If everybody wants it, there's one out there. So they don't believe that it's going to get extended. And I would think that you and I would hear a little bit of scuttlebutt because since we've been doing these little shows on forbearances and the economy and what's going on, you and I, every time they had a date, end of September got extended to end of December, which got extended to end of March, which got extended to end of June, something like that. And each time they extended it, you and I heard about it probably a couple months, 2 to 3 months
ahead of time.
Yeah. I haven't heard anything. Have you heard anything?
Either. No. And we're looking at less than 6 weeks.
Yeah. Not to say that they couldn't extend it because we just don't know what the government's going to do. But
No,
I really don't see them needing to extend it. And so you and I, Sarah, will be on top of this for sure over the next 6 to 7 weeks, just because, and I think as we get closer, we will know more. So I think that's definitely something. And as soon as we hear something, we will get it to the people so that they get the first information right away. So
I like it. Good.
Yep.
Good. That's why we're doing this, right?
That is just to get all the information and to give people options and to know what's going on.
Exactly.
And so it's been this last year's been extremely confusing.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if any of our viewers out there would like us to cover anything in particular, please let us know because we will definitely look into it and see what information we can put together.
Yep. Definitely. Okay. So we'll see you next week, Sarah.
Sounds good. Well, thanks, Lydia.
Thank you, Sarah. Have a good day.
Bye. You too.
Bye-bye.